forum. I'll call to order the meeting of the Airport Commission at 4:01 p.m. Commissioners attending remotely, can you please acknowledge yourselves?
Robin Gillian.
Thank you, Rob.
Greg's here. Greg, acknowledge.
Greg Shepler, Burlington.
Excellent. Thank you both. The first item up on for business.
You guys are muted.
Good.
Test, test, test.
We're working on it.
Got you.
Hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
This will make it good. You just stay there. Nick's behind the TV, you can't see it.
You can just
Hold
see.
on. He's got his tinfoil hat on.
Yeah, I could be one of them.
Yes.
All right, so
Do we have a quorum? Who's here?
we do.
Okay.
Yep, and looks like Britta's coming in as well.
Okay.
All right, so let's try that again. So we made a motion to approve the agenda. Helen has already made that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second?
That is motion by Robin. Any discussion or proposed modifications to the agenda? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Abstentions, we have an agenda. Next up is public forum. We have no one from the public, is that correct? All right, close down public forum, move on to item 4, which is the consent agenda. You're looking to approve the contents of the consent agenda as outlined in our packet.
I'll move that.
That was moved by Helen, is there a second?
Second?
That's a second by Robin. Any discussion on the contents of the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, here we go, folks, buckle up.
There's a lot on this.
Right, move on to action items. Item 5.1. We will entertain a motion to recommend that the Board of Finance and City Council approve the execution of an FAA grant for an automated exit lane as outlined in our agenda packet.
Adoption.
That is moved by Helen. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Reverend, and discussion to be led by Nick.
All right, so today's theme of motions is definitely gonna be grant acceptance and contract approvals, starting of course with this one. A huge thank you to Larry and his team and the rest of the team here for putting all these together. These applications are within the FAA's hands right now, so we're just waiting for their appropriation and approvals, which usually comes in before the end of the federal fiscal year, you can say that for sure. This particular grant, Dave's been working with Larry and the consultant team on is accessing and installing 2 additional automatic exit lanes for our security area. They will go side by side with what you see at our current exit lanes. So we'll have a total of 4 exits, 2 in the north, 2 in the south. Adds redundancy, adds ability for us to do maintenance on one while keeping that one open, etc. So there's lots of great paths for it. Originally, we were only doing 1 on each side, but over the last year or so, since these have been installed, we realized we need that redundant system. And it's a relatively small grant now, with the contingency about just shy of $270,000. We're expecting that from the FAA. 90% of it funded by FAA, 10% will come through reimbursement through the security facility charges.
Those are those little automatic doors, right?
So the automatic doors you walk through and the
Can't go back.
lady yells at you, keep walking, don't stop, keep moving.
just one thing to add, and something Hannah pointed out to me, we do reference past order with Engelberth in here. This is just a change order when they just contract that was already approved within contingency limits, so, and the pricing stayed the same. So it's already covered through by existing contract. So it's just they accept the grant and pay for this to get done.
Right, commissioners, any questions for Nick or Larry on this item?
Two total. Okay.
Two additional, we already have two installed, or two additional.
Can we get a different accent?
Or like.
We can check, yeah. No, I see Dave.
A little.
A little French, yeah. We can record it out. Yeah.
All right, commissioners, any discussion on this topic? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, any abstentions? 5.1 carries, we move on to item 5.2. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend the Board of Finance and City Council approve the execution of an FAA grant for additional eligible items related to the terminal integration project as outlined in our agenda package.
I'll look that.
Thank you, Helen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brad. Discussion, you can let me know.
Yeah, another grant, this one, if you remember the acronym TIP, this is part of the terminal integration project, the building that we opened about 2 years ago now. There were some local costs and additional costs to the project that originally weren't appropriated through the original congressionally directed spending bill. So this is through Marie and Larry's work, this is additional funding after the fact that is now able to be reimbursed back to the airport through an additional grant. This particular grant is just shy of $350,000. As a reminder, I think we were at 16 million to $14 million total for the TIP project. So this was a couple of eligible change orders to the FAA to go after.
Right. Commissioners, any questions on or comments on this topic? And just highlight what are these additional works that are being funded?
If, like what items?
Yeah.
Oh, good question. Anna brought that up, my attention earlier today too. So, for some of the furniture we ended up adding, some of the TSA relocation related stuff. And basically that's about it, that's everything, and some other renovations we did, so.
Okay. All right, commissioners, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, item 5.3, so this is the first of three-part motions that we'll have today. So the three-part motion that we wanted to entertain here is a motion to recommend that the Board of Finance and the City Council approve the following. 1, the acceptance and execution of an FAA grant for Runway 1533 rehabilitation. 2, a contract with SD Ireland for Runway 1533 rehabilitation. And 3, a contract with Stantec Consulting for Runway 1533 rehabilitation, all of which are as outlined in our agenda packet. Do we hear a motion?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Helen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Robin. Any discussion to be led by Nick?
I'll be great. So, yeah.
This is, believe it or not, the second largest grant that we're gonna be approving, because there's a much larger one than future agenda items tonight. So in all, this grant with contingency is potentially a $12 million grant to rehabilitate, as the memo states, our main runway, which is runway 1533. We've been talking about this project with the commission as well as our user groups for quite some time. This is grant season. When we get the grant this year, we are not starting this project. This is gonna take an enormous amount of effort by Dave and his operational team, by Larry and the engineers. consultant team to make sure spring of next year we are ready to go. This is gonna be a significant amount of night work to accomplish, essentially repaving the middle 2/3, if you will, of the runway, which is the asphalt section of the runway. SD Ireland bid on this project recently, they were the lowest responsible bidder. And we are excited to get this moved. And the memo does not do it justice, this is a highly complicated, highly funded, which is a good thing, but a very complicated facing project to make sure we don't impact the momentum that we've had out on the way this year, which is the growth, the increase in traffic, and of course, making sure our area partners are satisfied with the schedule to make sure we're not closed when they do arrive here. And we'll start next year.
I just have a question, later on the agenda, there was a mention of keeping the tower open 24/7. I assume for emergencies and different things. By the time we get that permission, will this be done, or if there's an emergency, do you have people land on the taxiway? There's nothing around, or how would that work?
No, this is gonna be a hard closure, so when we're ready to go. The contractors are gonna be ready to go, and this runway will be closed, it's not gonna be like we can vacate the runway in case there's an emergency, even if the tower was 24/7. Right now, there's no indication that there is. There's no connection, if there's an emergency, there's still air traffic control in the area, they're just not gonna be in the tower. The airspace essentially is taken over by Boston Center, Nashville, New Hampshire. So there's still air traffic controllers that are gonna be speaking to pilots up to a certain point, very similar to Plattsburgh Airport. And if there's an emergency, there's gonna be alternate airports to go to.
Okay,
Nick, are they gonna do it in chunks?
Yes.
How big are the chunks?
Good question, so strategically, this is gonna be a closure every single night and a reopening of the runway every single.
Single morning.
So this is gonna be small sections of removing asphalt, repouring asphalt, making sure the paint is good, inspecting with Dave and his team, and then reopening it for the following day, every single night for what, 2 months,
Right, for 6 hours.
for 6 hours.
From 11:30 to 5:30.
So we're doing like a midnight to 6?
11:30 to 5:30.
Sorry, sorry, I can't hear you.
11:30 to 5:30.
11:30 to 5:30, so
It's like midnight or 11:30.
Yeah, so we're working with the airline partners to probably change the schedule for that 60-day period of time.
Seems like that's what we do.
yeah, so they'd have to move everything up by like an hour, right?
That's
Because you couldn't have the landings that would make the 6 o'clock departures.
correct.
Yeah.
And, some of the airlines are actually proactively doing that, even outside of this process. Some airlines have actually looked at late summer this year, next year's summer schedule to be an 11:30 arrival anyways, so it's banging things up. That also means a little bit earlier for departure.
But we're doing the whole runway, right?
Just the asphalt section, so about 2.
Yeah, sorry, we're doing the whole asphalt section of the runway. Yeah, okay. Is there any differences, or is it just repaving? Like, we're not like adding something cool like heated?
Definitely.
A little groove so it all runs off a little better? No?
Yeah, so we have grooved on the runway right now, which is exactly that, just the runway is kind of like an upside down U shaped, obviously exaggerated. Grooves are going through it from through the width of it, so water drains off to the left and right to the sides of it. So it'll be grooved, not right away, it'll be grooved, but probably
That's the hard.
30 to 60 days.
Cool,
Yeah,
but that doesn't start till, this is a grant to go for next year.
This is a grant to get to
25.
this year and then start the project next year, correct?
Right, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, because we're not gonna get the grant, best case scenario, we'll get the grant before September of this year, we can't start a project.
The nighttime temperatures we have to have.
Yeah.
And it really is hard enough in 6 hours to land a big heavy plane.
That's why we pay engineers to make sure that's the case.
Yeah, and you're also only doing pieces, Helen. You don't do the whole thing every night. So you do small pieces that harden. So let's say that something did just go weird and maybe it wasn't like completely dry. You land and move over it at 100 miles an hour.
You're
So you
not,
don't, like land and go through it.
And we're not fully reconstructing the runway, we're going down 4 inches only. This
Yeah.
runway is 1.5 to 2 feet deep. We're just taking off the top skin layer and then repouring the asphalt, very similar to roads and things like that, to get right back on there. And of course, painting, we'll have to come back with permanent solutions to paint and grooving and things like that, but essentially those 60 days are gonna be asphalt work. Is a risk associated with the airport, of course, but there's far greater risk of not with the
And the bigger risk, like you actually alluded to, Helen, is that if they weren't on time or had oversight and they were still out there when we were ready to reopen and there was people working on the runway. That's a bigger risk that it doesn't really come into play because there's so much oversight to make sure that it didn't. But they actually work on runways, bigger runways than ours, at the same time that people are landing. So that looks even stranger,
yeah, that would be.
but it does happen.
An alternative is we can make the secondary runway just as big.
I'm in. Let's do it. Yes.
Unfortunately, we don't have the luxury. Manchester and Portland just did runway reconstructions last summer, and they have crossway runways both about the equivalent sizes, and they shut down one, use the other one. We don't have that luxury because our smaller cannot accommodate the big airlines. Any big airlines actually.
All right, Commissioners, anything else on this item?
No, and this is just the grant. We're not really getting in it. We don't need to get into the mud of the repayment anyway, right?
No,
Well, actually, no, there's 2 contracts that are part of this.
yeah, so this is the grant, this is the contract approved, and the contract approved for the construction as well.
Oh, right. And how many other bidders were there?
per se.
One, two.
Yeah, 2 bidders, Pike and Environment.
Okay. And have we worked with the other one before?
Pike did it last time 10, 12 years ago.
Okay. But since then we've worked with Ireland too, right?
Yeah, well, actually, Pike's doing the 6-acre ramp, the beta, the south apron that we're building right now. Pike's doing it.
Okay. All right.
Literally.
So they're both very known to the airport anyway.
Sometimes they so.
Yeah, it might have to be Pike too.
There was an important marriage.
And but the bids were competitive, they were
Greater than $100,000.
one 1% and then 2%.
Within 100,000?
$100,000 on 10.2 million.
So no collusion.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah, peanuts.
They get all their materials at the same place, at the same price, probably.
There's most likely, that's it.
Yeah, so. That's what-
I mean, if we only have 2, we need a backup.
Business opportunity out there.
Yeah.
gotta be constructed, who's in part?
And we never use an out-of-state bidder, right? Or we could.
We could, yeah,
We could. Okay.
if they bid on the project, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The state, so.
It's correct, yeah.
Remembering that, there were times when it was really challenging.
That's right. This is actually less than the original engineer's estimate though. When we were going through our capital plan over this last couple of years, we were expecting closer to $12 million.
Right, almost, we put in the federal share of $12 million, so our estimate was good and. So, yeah.
You don't need.
Commissioners, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi,
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Move on to item 5.4, which is another three-part motion. So I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend that the Board of Finance and City Council approve the following. 1, the acceptance and execution of an FAA grant for phase 4 of the residential sound installation project. 2, the execution of a contract with Strong Tower, Henry is terrible, for phase 4 of the residential sound installation project. And 3, the execution of a contract with Jones Payne Group for phase 4 of the residential sound installation project, all of which are as outlined in the agenda packet.
so moved.
As moved by Helen, is there a second?
Second.
A second by Brent, and discussion.
So this matches Larry's monthly report for our sound installation program. We did add a chart to Larry's report, which we'll get into later on in the meeting, but it does correspond to the chart of the quantity of properties that are included in the phase 4 project. All 16 of these houses that are currently designed are within the South Burlington city. And this particular grant that we're seeking authorization for includes the renovation of these 16 houses, as well as the design of the next phase, which would be an additional approximately 50 houses. This also, as the motion states, requests authorization to contract with Strong Tower at with contingency 2.2 million to build those 16 houses, as well as an additional 1.7 with contingency with the Jones Payne Group, mostly to help with the outreach and the design of the additional 50 houses. So we can be prepared for next season to apply for an additional grant for next year. There are an additional 34 houses that are currently designed, and we're hoping that there will be additional federal funding to see hopefully later this year with the FAA, and we're also monitoring the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, OLDCC grant funding, which still has not announced the notice of funding opportunity yet, but we heard it's supposed to be by the end of June. We also heard that in February. But these are the next 16 houses that are ready to be constructed this year.
So the next grant will be for some of the 34 that are all ready to roll.
That's correct, yeah.
There's been a little hold up with the FAA, so that's it's really important.
And we're pushing hard with the FAA to fund the rest of the
Yeah.
houses this year.
Keep pursuing.
I don't recall where the location of the 34 houses, the majority are gonna be within South Burlington.
Yeah, there's like several in with those key too. Yeah. So I don't have those exact numbers, but they're still doing outreach and finishing all that up, so.
Any discussion at this time? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, move on to item 5.5, so here. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend that the city council approve the execution of a grant from the FAA for electrical conduit relocation for the snow removal equipment building as outlined in our agenda packet.
So moved.
As moved by Helen, is there a second?
Second.
That is seconded by Robin.
And Tim, just so you know that it's cutting out just a little bit. Like I can figure out what you're saying, but maybe when we do like the motion just a little bit slower, so if it cuts out, we still get it. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Robin.
This is probably one of the smaller, if not smallest, grants that we've ever sought after. Just a little bit of background, this is related to a grant that we currently have that is designing a replacement to our snow removal equipment fleet. That is currently being designed and will continue to be designed the remaining part of this year. The FAA granted that funding under the airport's office. And because of the location of this building, it requires conduit to be relocated. The conduit is owned by a different branch of the FAA, which requires payment to that different branch of the FAA. So the airport doesn't have to pay this branch of the FAA to essentially design the relocation of this conduit. What's really great about it is we pay this branch of the FAA, the airport's division branch reimburses us through this grant opportunity. So it kind of all is working together to make sure that the airport is not on the hook for relocating the cost of paying this particular conduit. We still have a lot of work to do before we get to the actual construction of it.
And the main reason to break this off is because when it comes time to close out a project, we want to get reimbursed for the largest sum of money for the project itself. It takes the FAA a little more time to process there, so if we had to wait for them, we'd be waiting a lot longer than it takes us to get a project closed out. So that's why we break this off, just to handle it separately, so we're not held up for millions of dollars for 34,000. So the 10%, 3,000.
All right, Commissioner, any conversation or comments to this topic? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi,
Aye. Opposed, any abstentions? And lastly, 5.6, which is another three-part motion, so I would be willing to entertain a motion to recommend that the Board of Finance and City Council approve the following. 1, the execution of a contract Engelbert Construction for the North Concourse Replacement Project, also known as Project Next. 2, the execution of an FAA grant related to the North Concourse Replacement Project. 3, acceptance and execution of a Northern Borders Regional Commission grant related to the North Concourse Replacement Project, all of which are as outlined in our agenda packet. Do we hear a motion to that effect?
so moved.
That is moved by Helen. Is there a second?
Second.
That is seconded by Robin and Nick.
All right, so it's the smallest grant to the largest grant that we're receiving. Well, I shouldn't say that, let's go.
So far.
So it's super quick background on the project. I think we're all very familiar with Project Next at this point with the 3D visualizations that we presented, the poster boards that we have in the room. Jeff actually just installed a really cool 3-dimensional walkthrough and space inside the terminal for the public to do that, to see what is literally coming next for our terminal building. This is the culmination of a lot of design effort, a lot of work from the financial team to make sure that the project is of course funded. As you recall, we received through a congressionally directed spending appropriation $34 million, which would go towards this project. You can see, of course, from these numbers, we're beyond the $34 million by a little bit. The really great part is there are additional FAA funding opportunities. In fact, we have an additional $16 million that we have not utilized that we are going to be putting towards this project as well. We don't need all of it right now because I'll mention a couple of other opportunities that we have in just a second, but we're going to take a portion of that $16 million and add it to the 34 that we already have.
And that's represented in number 2.
And that's represented in the number 2 motion, which is that staff authorization, not only from the city, but also from the Federal Aviation Administration. That's CMAR for short, Construction Manager Risk. Process allowed us to bring in the contractor early with our engineering team to make sure that the costs align with the funding that we had available. It also allowed the engineering team to work with the folks that are gonna be building this building for us. To look at very specific details to make sure that costs were aligned and decreased where we needed to, especially most importantly, where it is ineligible, which of course we would have to find out local share of the airport costs. The contract with Engelberth that we're seeking tonight is $55 million with the contingency. There is a contingency built into the contract that we're working with Engelberth on, so this 15% is not as reflective as we typically ask for, because we want to be consistent with the FAA's rules with the 15%, but we also want to make sure we have full authorization with Engelberth today as we move this to City Council. There is additional construction that would occur that is beyond what we're asking for tonight. So we would be coming back. This scope of work gets us a new building. Everything that we designed as part of this new building, it demolishes the existing small portion of the north concourse. That's about it. The additional funding, as Larry mentioned in number 2, allows us to access the rest of the funding that was associated with the new building. But it doesn't include the renovation and installation of jet bridges and the renovation of the second floor of this terminal building. We are seeking additional funding for that. One of those is number 3. We don't know if we're gonna get this number 3, which is from a consortium of states, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, and this is called the Northern Borders Regional Commission. They have a new grant opportunity called Timber for Transit programs, specifically for projects with mass timber. So as we look at all these contract numbers, this building will have sustainable resource materials like mass timber, and it does include a full geothermal heating and cooling system, as well as solar capability. The Northern Borders Regional Commission grant opportunity allows us to access just over $1.7 million. Again, we do not know if we're going to get this grant. We're not going to know until the end of the month. However, we also don't know how quickly the signatures and authorizations are going to be needed. Therefore, that's why we're coming to the commission and the subsequent city council today. That's one more additional funding opportunity. We also, I'm very happy to report, have requested additional congressionally directed spending funds this year through both Senator Sanders as well as Senator Welch's office. Yesterday, I think it was, yesterday, we were just given notification that we have been nominated for an additional $7.5 million to be put towards jet bridges and mostly renovation of the second floor of this terminal. Again, that's also that's step 1 of the process. Even though we've been nominated, it still has to go through the full Senate appropriation. There are additional funding opportunities that we are also looking at, including competitive funding through what's called the Airport Terminal Program. This is additional FAA funding. This is nationally competition funds that would be later on in the year. This would help us really start aligning even beyond what we're talking about today, and making sure we're all tied from the tip to the brand new project next. The basis of what I'm trying to get at is there is a significant amount of federal funding that we have at our disposal, including today, like I said, 34 million plus 16 million. We have $50 million at our disposal to put towards this particular project as we look at contracts with Engelberth of just under $48 million. However, if we don't have to use that additional $16 million, that's why we're trying to access all of these other buckets of funds. And that way we can put the $16 million to alternate programs throughout the area. Passenger facility charges are also going to be a large item on this. Obviously, 10% of a large number is going to be a large number. And we're going to be supporting that 10% local share of these projects with passenger facility charges over a period of time. There are also large ineligible numbers associated with the construction. Those numbers right now are about $3 million, not including the PFCE funds. And that $3 million are going to be ineligible portions of the ineligible portion of the entire building. So we have to prorate the building based on what passengers actually utilize. There's very specific methodologies to go through, as well as the majority of that 3 million, about 1.7 million will be for the third level of the building, which will be the observation area, the new event space, and the new airport administration offices. That funding to fund that portion of the project, we will be using local airport funds and cash to make sure that we access the full gamut of funding opportunities that the FAA, Northern Border Regional Commission, all of those funding opportunities that are at our disposal.
To put in the sort of layman's terms for me, so the 55 million builds it.
Correct.
And the almost 8 million is this ability to hire people to make it really work together so that the design and the costs are the construction manager will work with the engineers so that it's really aligned and we're not like,
That's right.
oops, we're,
It's better than bidding it and all of a sudden getting a.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we would,
Okay.
that and the timing on that, so again, we're only at 80% design right now. If we were going after traditional bidding opportunities, we'd have to go to 100%, almost 100% design. And then get it out to bid, which we would be ready for.
We wouldn't know what the dollars were, we'd be surprised.
And we wouldn't be able to, and we wouldn't know what the dollars were, we wouldn't be able to.
okay, so this will make the final bid number hopefully really accurate.
That's exactly right. These numbers that we're contracting with Engelberg are maximum guaranteed price.
Which is the 47.9, but there is a contingency.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the final 1.7 for the mass timber thing. Could that be described as kind of meeting some of the environmental desires we have when it comes to the building materials? And is that is the geothermal in there, or is that embedded in the
That
55 million?
1.7 million and the geothermal are in the $47,900,000.
Yeah, so
The ones that
It's not
it's
even
really
additional.
for like non-passenger use portions of the airport. And so
well, no, it's just for mass,
Timber.
whether it's passenger or.
oh,
Mass
okay.
timber.
I thought it was a subset of 3 million.
No,
It's separate.
There is some.
Okay.
It's supplements, it's in the 47 million, we can use it in that $47 million, so we can use that same amount somewhere else if we have too much, so.
So that contract we're not with Engelberg 47 million, that's everything. That builds us the building, that's everything. Then you piece out some of these other things, so of that 47 million, 1.7 million could be funded by Northern Borders Regional. 50
For like the
million.
sustainable materials.
That's exactly
I think-
right, but to answer your question, absolutely. mass timber is going to meet our goals of sustainability and sustainable products. We did do an analysis of, do we build with steel? Do we build with mass timber? Is there available mass timber facilities in our area? And if there's not, which there is not, where do we source it from? It does have to be Buy American because these are federal funds. Sourcing it most likely is going to come from Alaska. So is it still worth trying it all the way across the country in a quantity that can meet, still reducing our carbon? And through that analysis, the answer is yes. Right now, it's about 10 times better than building with steel, including the transportation carbon cost. And then you have geothermal to that. Geothermal definitely made this project more expensive, probably $2 to $3 million more
In the
expensive.
short term, in the long term.
In right away, that's exactly right, but in the long term, it's gonna be absolutely amazing for us.
And I
Okay, thank you, now I.
Thank you for asking, because I have.
Sorry, yeah.
well, I can simplify it. We've already got approved $34 million in federal shares. Add 7 million to it, that's $41 million. Add 1.7 to that, that's $43 million. We have our 10%, and we have ineligible, and we have engineering. So that matches up with that $47 million.
The bundle.
It's a bundle.
Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, so that was a lot. I remember when this, like you said, we've had many discussions about this, and that I think Marie explained before how we already knew that there would be over budget items. This wasn't a surprise, and we knew that we were going to go out after it with different funds. So all good there. I guess one of the questions though is with the jetways, is it because we go after this money to make this new terminal or, new pieces of it. And then all of a sudden, some of our partners are flying in bigger airplanes. Are the jetways having to be adjusted for the size of the airplanes we're now not only getting, but expecting? Part one.
Yes, on top of our existing jet bridges that we're replacing are 20 years old, so they're very expensive to maintain right now. But to answer your question directly, yes, everything about this building is associated with the flexibility of planes coming in and out. As they get bigger, or if they get smaller for any reason, we want that flexibility.
The next question, right? We want to be able to go both directions. Okay, and then we expect this project to last how long for building? Is this 3 years, 5 years? What are we looking at?
This is right now probably a 3-year construction project. We're hoping with the approvals of this contract, this will go to City Council on June 24th. There's a Board of Finance in between as well. Once we sign the contract, we have the rest of the summer to really finish up the permitting on the project. We're hoping to be shovels in the ground by end of summer of this year. Of this year. So we're ready to go as long as all of this federal grant funding is all signed up on.
Right.
Once that happens, the initial phase of building the new building, that's gonna take 12 to 18 months. Then we demolish the old building. Then we start the renovation of the second floor, and that'll take another 12 months. So we're looking at a total time period of this end of summer start to probably summer of 2026 being completely done.
Nice. And then 2 more questions. One is, so, just like a house, you have more project creep. Are we already, like right now, project goes up, we already knew, you guys are prepared, you're going in for the grant. If it goes even further than what we think now, are we already looking for funds in case?
Yeah, that's the really beautiful part of this additional $16 million. We're only pulling 7.9 of that $1 million right now. So if there is projects creep over the next year as we build the first part of the building, there's some accessibility of that funding to come back to us. That funding is appropriated to us, not awarded to us yet, but it has our name on it for 5 years. That started two years ago, I think.
That's number two.
And that's number two, yep.
And
So
this
there
is-
there already is funding available in case that happens.
Got it. Good job. And the last question is this because the building is getting, significantly bigger, are we moving or building a new tower?
No, No.
Aw,
not yet.
not yet. Okay.
Yeah, this will be.
Well, but it won't, I mean, obviously I know engineers, Larry, sorry, but obviously it won't affect the view from the whole airport from the tower.
No,
It's backing up.
it might actually improve it, because once the north concourse is removed. The tower folks right now do not have a visual of our terminal apron, especially in some of the tight corners, so they'll be able to see more of our terminal ramp much better.
And we also have 7460 review and approval from the FAA for the elevations.
Right, right. We just can't see we also can't see the valley, right? We'll probably never see that unless we have cameras down there. Okay, thank you.
Worried about moving, but definitely not as part of this grant opportunity.
Got it. Thanks.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, just a question. Robin just mentioned that obviously, and the application indicates that the footprint of the building is enlarging, and you've had a lot of specifics about the necessity of that, as well as the funding and the areas of improvement. I haven't heard anything specifically about the waste stream. If we're getting larger in size, is any of the money going to be devoted to improving our waste management system, or are we expecting to use to funnel the larger footprint into our existing system?
What, are you talking solid waste? Are you talking sanitary waste? What are you referring to, or both?
I'm just in general referring to any sort of waste. So I would think that the waste that's generated from the terminal itself.
We're properly sized at this point, with respect to, the numbers we have in our master plan as we go. Keep in mind, this facility was handling much more people in 2008, right? So we are perfectly sized, and in fact, we're going to the city of South Burlington right now to solidify all our usage on water and wastewater right now. So we're going through that process because the city has all kinds of different permits for our properties. So that's being done, and then we also, so we're properly sized for that, Greg.
Okay, I'm just thinking as an example, and I know the plan is already ambitious, but a lot of it indicates in the application an effort to be a sort of a state-of-the-art system in terms of an airport. And I'm just thinking that, the work that Sugarbush ski area has done with their sort of natural system of filtering wastewater. There's another example on Interstate 89 on the northbound route at the Vermont Veterans Memorial Rest Area has an example of efforts to filter wastewater before it goes into the stream. Just, thinking that if that should be included. Maybe it's probably too late. I'm just sort of bringing it up now because maybe it isn't too late to consider some of those options at this point. But state of the art also includes, particularly if we're getting bigger, the ability to keep our environment, our neighbors, our lake as clean as possible. But Larry has indicated that he feels confident that our existing system can handle the increase.
And it'll be permitted that way. Obviously, it has to be accepted by the city, the state, all agencies will have reviewed this, and we've already talked to the city of South Burlington and with respect to the utilization of wastewater.
Thank you.
All right, just a quick question, just so I get my numbers straight. So there's $3 million that I'm hearing that is not eligible for reimbursement from the multitude of sources. So we can obviously look at our finances and feel like we can for that. Is that something we're gonna finance, or is that gonna be like write a big check for $3 million?
Yeah, right, let's write a big check. Yeah. Our cash is really healthy, especially when you include the reimbursables still due to the import of the grants. We feel like financing it is going to be a better option. And Marie actually introduced us to an organization that specifically helps finance sustainable project that uses mass timber with low interest rates. So we're not sure if we're eligible, we're going through the motions on that. But it's an opportunity to kind of obviously extend that. Now, because this project is such a long period of time too, that these payments are gonna be obviously over a period of time. But yeah, these ineligible pieces are most certainly the largest dollar value ineligible that I think we've ever experienced, certainly in this administration. And definitely don't want to miss the opportunity of the large scale federal funding that go into it, but of course would be sustainable financial scale too.
Yeah, I didn't know how that was spread out. I don't know, it works over the course of the project, because I don't know if it's like a certain percentage all the way through, or if it's like when we're working on the portions that are ineligible, like that's when it builds up. Both, it's more lumpy.
Both, so it really is a percentage of the entire project. I think I don't say the number, 85% eligible, is that correct?
It varies, I mean,
Sounds like
it's
you're
years of work, it's years of work.
The proration, some of it is 92%, some of it goes down to 77%.
Some of it's 100%.
Some of it's 100%.
Well, 3 million, roughly 50 would be 6%. So.
And I don't know what's going. But so yeah, so over time, every single bill is gonna have a portion of it that's ineligible. Until we get to the physical spaces that are entirely ineligible, like the third floor. But of that third floor deck, we wanted to make sure that as much of it was eligible as well, so. Originally, that number was much higher. And we worked with the engineers and the consultants to make sure that we're building a roof on a 2-story building, that roof better be eligible in the first place, whether it's on the third floor or second.
Right.
So there's,
So the empty, I mean,
There-
there's occasions empty space until we
Exactly.
find money,
that's exactly right.
finish it.
And I'm still very adamant, because this proration has to happen, utilities, geothermal, heating, cooling, right? The proration only takes into account square feet. Which I think is very unfair. We're building a third floor, 8,000 square foot third floor facility with a 10-foot ceiling. The interior of this space, that is much higher than 10 feet, and the heating and cooling of this space is obviously much higher. So why should the proration be higher for? Right, so we're trying to convince the FAA that these
Cubic feet, right.
That's right, which in past airport projects has been approved, including what is existing in this term. So it's a different FAA, that's the project, so we'll see where we go. So we're still working out final eligibility. But it's gonna tweak.
Yeah, and if we won't know until the end of the month, but if we do receive this timber grant from the Northern Border Alliance Group, then there's a portion of that it's actually going toward that ineligible, because some of that mass timber is up on the third floor, the decking. So some of that and to the space that would be considered ineligible, and that will help balance it out.
And then the second piece is, you mentioned that there might be some follow-up work after all of this. Do you have any estimates on dollars for that, and how much of that is ineligible?
I don't. All of it is eligible, there's some bit up in the admin level, that we're still working through costs. I think it's gonna be a relatively small portion, but the rest of this scope really is additional apron work that goes beyond the immediate footprint of this building and the demolition of the old building. There's some furniture that we wanna make sure is included in this, in the second phase, mostly related to the second floor renovation. Which we wouldn't buy as we build a new project, but as we renovate the second floor. And then a big chunk of the entire renovation right here behind this wall would be in that second phase. So there would be, we would be coming back at a future date for acceptance of additional grants.
But the expectation is it's gonna be almost exclusively eligible for grant funding.
That's correct. There's only a small piece of the admin level that would not be.
Okay.
Which I don't.
The topics are jet bridges, small, off-gate one, we're gonna need a little more concrete because it reaches out a little bit bituminous. That's the second thing, and the third, or our second floor renovation. Those are the three titles of those items that will be coming back.
Because they all kind of deal with public spaces or spaces at the airport, airlines are using their planes, that makes it eligible, right? It's when it's not for public purpose, that makes that portion. Those will be eligible.
The definition.
More items, it's.
Yeah.
Yeah. The definition of eligibility in the FAA's handbook, AFP handbook, is the movement and flowage of passengers and baggage. So we try to utilize that definition to of course, the funding advantage. The new building, the first floor is really not gonna be much except for utilities. Other non-passenger, non-public spaces. That's the reason for a lot of that being not eligible. But about half of the footprint we added to our baggage claim room that's behind the scenes, nobody's gonna see it. But it now becomes the flowage of baggage, creating eligibility, so that there's a lot of creative angles to make sure. If it is, well, and we have a pretty candid conversation with them, they know what we're doing. And they ask questions, to make sure we're following the rules, just like we know how to follow.
All right, commissioners, any other points on this item? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That wraps up action items. We move on to the financial update from Marie.
So this month, we have the April revenues and expenditures, we have the April revenue recovery metrics. And you have the banking balance report and the AIP, those are the grant receivable report, those go through May 31st. The CARES Act, we are entirely closed out and we did receive that money from the FAA in May. So that will come off the list here for the next report because that one is closed out and they're no longer receivable. But it'll show up on the AIP receivable for the year, but it'll be done. We're still holding steady on the two other stimulus grants. We haven't drawn any additional money down in a few months on that. And we'll be carrying most of that into next year with this remaining money. Our year-to-date revenues through April were $22.8 million. Our operating revenues continue to be stronger than they were from over last year. And that is predominantly because we have higher car rental revenues and our parking garage revenues are still strong. And so you'll see on the, we have the revenue recovery, so you can kind of see how things are trending. PFC revenues, I expect that we'll start to see those go up as we head into summer here. I think we're going to start to see that go from 91% to a lot higher. We have a lot of seats that are being offered and we anticipate that we'll have more people applying. So that will help those revenues, all revenues actually. Our expenses through April were $14.6 million. This is also higher than it was last year. A large driver of that, and I kind of state where our bigger differences are, just to make it easy for you to see how we're trending. Through the year, pretty consistent, but you know, repairs and maintenance due to the garage lighting and fire alarm system is higher than it was last year. So I'm just comparing year over year, like where we're spending the money. The same thing with our salaries, employee benefits are $680,000 higher compared to last year for the same 10-month period. Professional consulting services, utilities. So just to give you kind of a where we're spending the money. Our cash update, we had almost $4.7 million in the airport checking account. Did not owe the city any money. And our AIP receivable was just under $6.5 million. We have about $3 million of that that's through the closeout that we are inactively, and we are actively working on getting those grants organized and making sure we've got everything that we need to be able to close those grants out. So we are anticipating that over the next couple of months to be closing those grants out, a whole slew of them. And so that will be very helpful. And we also, there are a couple of grants that you approved today. So thank you for that we have applied for, anticipating getting over the next few months, that we have been spending on design work. Noticeably, this next project, we got $2 million in design work to date so far, so we have paid those bills. As soon as we get those grants, we are able to go in and draw that reimbursement down. So we're anticipating that we'll see that hit in the next 60 to 90 days. We should really have all those grants in hand. Hopefully some of them sooner, like Runway 1533, even though we won't be doing that work on the runway until next, probably almost about a year out. We're able to get reimbursement design as soon as we receive the grant. So that.
The really great thing that Maria and I talked about is of the almost $5 million in payments owed by the FAA through these grants, none of that is in our cash, and again, coming from our grant anticipation though. So truly the cash in hand as of May 31st of $4.7 million plus the $6.5 million in receivables due from the FAA is how I view our cash position. And then a quick note on our fiscal year 2025 budget. I did just receive the notification of when City Council is reviewing it. So thank you for the review. I think it was last meeting or whatnot. Our special meeting. The full City Council will approve our budget on June 10th, so 5 days.
Right, Commissioners, any questions for Marie?
Or did you just say that we know it's going to be approved,
I have no indication.
or it goes up for approval?
Oh, yeah.
It goes up for approval.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you do that, is that like, you know, the kind of presentation that you give to us, or they already get everything in advance and they've already looked it over?
Yep, they got the same presentation that you all saw, and this is definitely gonna be more focused on the city budget, I'm sure on that particular night. But that's the formality of approving the budget.
But we're not really asking for much from them, right? Because you guys are doing a great job
I think,
pushing on the FAA.
yeah, this is an enterprise, we don't take any dollar.
Any dollars, right? Yeah.
To pay them a certain amount.
For this
For
service.
services. Well, I mean, if it helps them defray the cost of police.
That's right, that's correct.
Okay.
Since it came up, the grant anticipation note. So I know that we were in the process of renewing that. Where is that?
Yeah, so that chart is led by the CT office, does that, and I am hoping that we will close by the end of this fiscal year. It's not a revolving loan, so it's like if we get 10 million, I get 10 million over the course of a year to draw down and pay back.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
And so one of the things with this next project, everything that's given, I probably will not want to be drawing that. I probably want to reserve the flexibility
Right.
to use that as we get well into this project, just if we.
Absolutely.
But you know, the reimbursements from the FAA, especially on $34 million, we should be able to draw that quickly each and every time. So you know, you might be moving out. It's going to be just a sort of different.
But those invoices coming to that project are gonna be big.
Yes, yeah, so you know, my hope is to have it in hand and in place, but that I'm waiting on a little bit on the CT office. So I haven't gotten confirmation that is all ready to go. It might be the beginning of July at this point.
Do you think the 10 million will be sufficient? Given all of the work?
I do, particularly because unless you're getting to where you're approaching 90% of the grant, sometimes if there's a change order, sometimes there's something weird that will happen and it will slow down every person, but typically we're able to go right in. And so we're paying bills on Friday and I'm going right in this week to, it's about $500,000. So we're going in and drawing that down because we're not at 90% on those. So I expect that we'll be able to, it's really the ones we see outstanding are either designed for future grants or because we're waiting to close the grants out.
Well, at the end, right?
At the end.
It will be a little painful, because that last 10% is,
It's that last 10%.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna eat a good chunk of it, yeah.
The tip is the greatest example of
The
that.
tip is
Yeah. That's what I have. Thank you, Marie, and we'll move on to the construction update. Mike.
Hey, Greg,
Oh.
Is there a thing? You know, so.
no. Yeah, okay. All right, pretty much my report this month referred to all those memos that Nick has already gone through. Did want to report on the tech center. We had a great meeting with the South Burlington DRB last night. It did get continued to 2 weeks from now due to some landscaping work thing we had to do, but we're going back then anyway, it's our master plan review just because of that project. So we're hoping that it's closed in 2 weeks, but it went well last night. And the other thing I wanted to mention is I've been, with respect to the dollar amount on here for the project next, I was only had that original grant dollar in there. Obviously, that's gonna change and it's gonna be much more than that. It's, you know, it's a larger project than that first grant, and that's all I was covering with that 34 or 37 million, whatever we had there. 38, right, we're gonna be well below that. So I'll fix that for next month. And then I think I wrote I think that's about it, but I wanted to mention something right about it, because you had to step out, so. Oh, there it is, great. So, want to follow back up on your question with regard to waste, okay, or, so we just finished a very lengthy, sustainability report. And I know there's been a lot of focus on the part of it, but we go into detail on water, wastewater, solid waste, and all the good things we're currently doing and will be doing. And I would ask that you take a look at that when you have time. I don't know, do we have that on our website? Yeah, we do. It's on our website, but we cover all those aspects in that sustainability report. So if you could look at that, and if you have any suggestions, that would be very much appreciated. But we've been over the last, several years, with respect to solid waste, especially, we have been focused on improving that system, which we have, and then, of course, that sustainability report is out there. Take a look at it. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions for Larry?
No, thank you, Larry.
Okay, then we will move on to Mr. Compatibility program update, also.
This is a similar situation to the last report, Nick, referring to with respect to the phase 4 residential sound insulation program we just went in. We're working towards closeout for phase 1 and phase 2. Projects have been completed. Phase 3, Strong Tower, that's the 52 homes, is out there doing measurements and everything like that. There was a holdup with the contract signature as we previously reported, because of the whole window issue, but now that's back on track, and we should have a better schedule. They're finishing this week with all their measurements and all their inventory and all that type of stuff, so we'll have a better, hopefully, report next month on timing for when they're actually gonna start construction of those 52 homes. So that's, and obviously, I think Nick already reported, or we already talked about that. Those 50 homes that were included this for the next outreach, which we're going forward with that grant for 16 of them with the 34. I don't know if I need to go back through that, but I think we already went through that in detail where we are with the 16 and the 34.
And there's a new chart on it.
Oh, yeah. That's right. I hadn't seen that yet. So I think I didn't see that. So I think we've reported most everything here. That's about it. That's all I got. Oh, noise exposure map. The this schedule, excuse me,
The updated one, or the one you're working on?
the one we're working on, this schedule is gonna be adjusted slightly, we had to go back to the FAA with how those contours are gonna work with respect to some of the operations. And it's taking a little bit of time, and we are now waiting on not our local FAA, but our the federal, the higher level FAA to make some decisions to get back to us so we can finalize those contours. So, and this is gonna get pushed out, rather than having a meeting in this month or next month, it'll probably be August before we have our next technical advisory committee meeting. And we're hoping it's, it's out there, we're waiting for their blessing before we move forward.
And regardless of when the next TAC meeting is, the purpose of delaying the meeting is because we do want to present the draft noise exposure map at the next meeting. Like Larry said, right now, we're tentatively looking at September, as soon as FAA headquarters approve some of the technical documents that we've submitted.
Any questions?
If there's any questions for Larry? I just have one question, and I think it's resulted from the inclusion of the chart, which I think is great. So when we talked about the 50 quote-unquote homes, if a home is like a duplex or a triplex, or there's more than one unit, does that count as one structure, or does it count as like 3 homes? Okay,
So these are dwelling unit tenants.
Okay.
So yeah, that duplex would be 2
got it.
units. Yeah. And that's why.
No, that's what made me like it.
And then you count the number of, right, if not as what the unit show versus a small.
And also, this chart, the unit count, is those numbers reflect the phase of construction. Right. Okay, because they were designed in the prior phase. So.
One thing that I've suggested to Anna to update is as phases are completed, like phase 1 and phase 2, we're gonna start having 10, 15 colors on this chart pretty quickly here. So we can start combining the completed colors and phases together, so you can see here's the band of completed houses in a single color, similar to the purple line.
And I apologize, the first I've seen, but there is one house missing on this because one family decided to go to Florida last year, waiting to be able to get all the materials ready to go. And they're gonna have to be finished this year, so.
Is that 129 or 141?
Which phase?
That was, see that phase 2, it says 5, it should be 6, now 52 will be 53. Yeah, so. We have all the materials, we just need them to do the construction.
Right, any other, oh, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I want to just say thank you for making updates to the map and adding the table. I think those are big improvements. So I really appreciate the work to make that a little bit easier to follow. Excited to see the previous agenda item about funding. So, glad to see there's kind of continued progress there. For the website, is it possible for the meetings to add a note that or to update the Gantt chart to reflect that the next technical advisory meeting is not anticipated, and stakeholder involvement as well will be delayed. Just want folks to be able to see accurate information if they're looking, especially since we're looking and recruiting for a new airport commissioner for Winooski. Want to make sure that they have up-to-date information that they're reflecting on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go through the website and make sure, oh, I see now, and make sure that timeline is updated as well as the meeting schedule, which I see in there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then just related, to Winooski events and the sound insulation work, and just other, considerations for the airport operations. Winooski has an upcoming Equity Action Community Meeting on June 22nd at 12 p.m. at the O'Brien Community Center. The focus of that is really just community gathering, and an opportunity to review our city's equity audit, that was completed a few years ago now. But certainly invite, you yourselves, any staff, any commissioners that would like to participate and attend that community event in Winooski. And I can send over a link to Hannah to share if folks have interest.
Britton, also, as you had suggested, more outreach in Winooski, we're about there to start that because we already talked about the 34 homes and the acoustical thing that's being reviewed. And we're now gonna be getting more into Winooski, so our team will step it up, moving forward with that, so.
And on that note too, we just completed or are in the final steps of completing a full communication plan. This actually came from Paul a couple of years ago as we were going through some of the noise programs in noise map updates in Winooski back in 2019. And so over the last year, we've been really working on a public communications plan, which incorporates our noise program and how we want to broadcast some of these these pieces, both from an equitable and a language standpoint, but also from various community standpoints. So that's going to be going online most likely within the next month. That week. Yeah. What's on?
Great, glad to hear it. Thank you.
All right, anything else for Larry? Seeing that, we move on to the director's report.
All right, I'm gonna cruise through some of this, and some of this is I'm gonna hand over to Jeff as well. So just a quick update of our recent conference that Jeff and I attended with our consultant from Bolaire. We were in Washington DC 2 weeks ago or so at what's called Jumpstart, which is an annual air service development conference. This year, I think there was 150-ish airlines that attended this conference. And while there's some typical sessions and learning opportunities in the conference, the majority of the meeting was business to business meeting type event. So we had opportunities to sit one-on-one with over a dozen airlines throughout various days. New airlines, existing airlines that service Burlington today, airlines that used to be here that are very interested again in Burlington. It was a very, very productive, multiple conversations, very fast. A couple of days down in Washington DC.
It was a lot. Speed dating is the best way to put it. Meeting with 10 or 12 airlines for 20 minutes. Not just that, but other service providers, technologies that we currently leverage that we're going to look to expand that might give us some more information on emissions, etc. So it was a lot. And then after the conference, Nick came home. And then I flew to Jacksonville with marketing assistant Alex and brought up the inaugural Breeze flight that first landed in Raleigh. About 20 passengers or so stayed on the plane, and they breezed on through onto Burlington. And it's pretty exciting to be able to breeze through. That's right. And we came up on an older plane, but they're going to have a brand new 220 flying. It's a twice a week flight, so pretty successful.
And between the conference, the inaugural flights, the communication with the airlines, the last part of this quick presentation is really about our future schedule. I've been talking, hyping up our future summer schedule, but it truly confirmed that the airlines are growing in Burlington pretty significantly, double digits on a seat capacity. And the conversations at the event and you know, our flight really indicated. Both Jeff's flight from Florida through Raleigh back to Burlington was full. I departed I happened to go on a vacation on that original flight with my family. Full, as well. The average load factors for the cumulative Breeze portfolio right now is over 90% full on each one of those flights, Tampa, Orlando, and Raleigh, Jacksonville service, which is very exciting. You want to talk about your team's?
Yeah, a week after we were in Nashville, Jillian and Alex and I went down to Mount Snow, spent a couple of days at the Vermont Tourism Summit. Very good information, a lot of good networking. We did sponsor the event, one of the coffee breaks that they had. I'm not sure it's something that we're gonna continue to sponsor in the future, but there's still some good conversations to have. In fact, Vermont Tourism Department just released some grants fund opportunities. And so that's due in a couple of weeks, and we're looking to submit it's up to $150,000 some marketing initiatives. So it was good. Good to network with people in the industry and talk about project plans. That's really what our goal was while we were down there. And other stuff that we're working on. So we have been internally working on a mascot for the airport. It has been ordered. We will be doing a big reveal party of it, so I'm gonna keep it super secret. There's only like 3 people here at the airport that know what it is, but I told you about one. I don't know if it's the actual one. And we're hoping actually to have it in
Just threw you off the track.
just keeping him on his toes, see if he pays attention.
He's gonna put me in it, so I don't even get to see what it actually is.
And we're putting together a block party in August, just to bring people to the airport. Very early conversations and feasibility of that. We're hoping that we have the mascot in time for that. So gotta see if the timing works out. It may or may not work. We're wrapping up our Element project. Remember, that's the organization out of Montreal that did a deep dive on the marketability, the sponsorship and advertising pricing that we should be charging. And no surprise, preliminary numbers saying we are, we'll do about 20% of what we should be doing. So Alex has her work cut out for her in terms of selling advertising space in our current terminal, but also once Project Next comes through. We have sponsorships increasing. We've got our annual barbecue gathering at the Lake Monsters on July 5th. And I've already talked about the grand openings to the tourism department. So a lot of stuff going on for the innovation and marketing. So
Maybe we can borrow Champ's little thing for your mascot.
I feel like no, a little bit of ATV thing.
I love them.
Yeah.
As a fan.
Electric. Something you've done.
No less dramatic.
Mascot.
Oh boy, so really to wrap it all up and to again talk about our summer numbers coming really starting in June. They're starting to skyrocket with the number of scheduled seats. In fact, since our last meeting, the schedule has changed again and added 13,000 seats just for this year, since we last presented. So we're at.
This is without JetBlue.
This is without JetBlue. This is with existing airlines with real schedules that you can purchase tickets right now. So just last month, we were at about 127,000. Now we're over 140,000 scheduled seats. Our load factors are still extremely high, so it's very likely that we'll hit around 85%, if not higher, filling those 840,000 seats this year. You can see on the last page of the presentation, the light blue line, of course, the dashed line is the projections. We're not going to change that line as we present this to you, so you can see where we track. We're still lower than we were back in 2019 for the beginning part of this this period as well as lower than last year. However, you can see the dashed line consistent with the prior slide, really starting to increase in the month of June and far surpass 2019, 2020, 2023. What I might add is 2008 to this chart as well. I know that we're going to be lower on an annual basis, but I'd like to compare the summer months at least, so we can see where we stand there. But again, the solid light blue line or teal colors, not teal, I guess there already is a light blue line, is consistent with that dashed line of the projection, which is about 85%, and slightly above what we projected for pretty much all 4 months that we're presenting to you tonight. So we'll keep doing that. We're hoping that next month, as we report the month of May, which we always compile the data for the first couple weeks of the following month, we're hoping to see that number really hit about 55, right over 55,000, yeah, right up to around 2019. So very exciting, and we have a couple of announcements. In fact, we just got about September new numbers from the Department of Transportation and our consultant through September. We can see through April, but it's really consistent through September right now. And American Airlines, we did put Jeff and his team put out a press release last week about American Airlines just absolutely expanding significantly. As I mentioned before, we're again looking at double digits, 50% over last year in some of the months, including August. September was just released, and now it's close to 80% increase in seats for specifically American Airlines, including adding service to the New York market. And if you recall, American Airlines currently does not fly to the New York market, so they're going to be adding a new LaGuardia service for us starting in September. So we'll have both United, all 3 companies, United, Delta, and American, now flying to that New York market, which is really good because of the federal constraints in that market right now. Capping essentially the flight center there because of
I believe that's the first time that flight on American's approved since April 2017. So it's been a while.
What do you attribute this increase in passenger?
Ticket sales and the projections.
You know, what is it? In spite of what the polls and the press says, are people believing that the economy really is okay? Or
I had a great conversation with the mayor and her team just yesterday about this. And there's a lot of talk about the region, and so a lot of struggles in the region, various capacities regarding growth. But the indication, especially this summer, that people truly are not just traveling and enjoying leisure travel, but coming back into the airport, because the numbers are going to be consistent, coming back into the region. People are purchasing tickets, and even though our numbers are low in these first couple of months, the load factors, the fullness of these flights is higher than any airport in New England right now. If I shared that last. Yeah. So typically the load factor averages for the country are 79%. New England and the New England area airports are 81, 82%. Our average load factors through calendar year 2023 is 87%. We're working with potentially a new airline that's coming in here, and they want us to average load factors for projections at 88%. So these are consistent numbers with real ticket data sales. Profitability is there too. There are great indications from these airlines that even though there's always a struggle to make sure that there's competition, to make sure tickets prices are competitive. The profitability and the demand out of the airport is incredibly strong. That's contributing to that.
I'll add to that. We're at Jumpstart. We talked to all the airlines we currently have. They all said the same thing. And they were indicated there might be more changes coming down the pipe. There was not one.
Cool.
Right, Rob, go ahead. You're on mute, Rob.
You're on mute.
I did click it. So as we're looking at these, some interesting things for that graph, are we seeing more passenger seat miles in, how do I say it, so it's understandable? We're getting bigger airplanes coming. We're filling those airplanes. So are we getting an increase in passengers with the same or actually less amount of aircraft movement?
Yes, so the number of air carrier operations
Didn't
has
change.
decreased.
Right.
Well, it's decreased a little bit, right?
Right.
So,
Right, but you increased the size of the airplane, so you got more people.
right, but and you're exactly right, so the average seats on any particular flight is now 91 versus 69 back in 2008, which.
Right, we're losing the CRJs and we're replacing with bigger airplanes. So
Yeah.
that's a really good thing. I think that to answer Helen's question, another thing that's happening in the industry that you're going to see, and especially sort of applies to Burlington, one of the things that was difficult to maintain those full flights for JetBlue is JetBlue does not consider itself a hub and spoke airline. And so it had the early morning flight that could connect with anything at JFK, and it had a late flight that connects with anything at JFK, but it had two flights in the middle that didn't really connect with anything. I mean, it connected with some JetBlue flights, but it wasn't built that way. So what you're seeing with bigger airplanes going to like Delta American United, they're literally built to connect with JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark, that allows people to make those connections and go on to other places, right? Because that's, not that much of our traffic. There is some of our traffic that just wants to go to Newark or go to Detroit or whatever, but a lot of it is just connecting. And so the better that you make that connection, the bigger airplane you can put on, the increased service that we'll see.
All right, anything else for Nick? Move on to item 10, which is commissioner items. Didn't receive any advance, but are there any items that any commissioners would like to discuss at this time?
I just wanted to report, I serve on the planning commission now, and we are working on redoing some of the zoning relative to the state housing bills that passed. And just for your information, the council still would have to support it, but we are recommending that, I think for whatever reason, I don't know, there were 2 airport zones, and we're making it into 1, which should make things a little easier or clearer about what requirements there are. So
That makes sense, because I think they were very consistent with the allowable uses on.
they were, I don't know why there were 2, and it's just
Airport,
kind of.
industrial, yeah.
Yes, and so now, and I'm just assuming council will go along with that, wouldn't just makes it easier or.
That's good.
So, and then when you get back with me on some of the concerns I've heard, maybe we have it as an item.
Yeah, absolutely, I
For the next
I'll
meeting.
maybe incorporate it into.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
One thing to respond on, similar to that, in the next few weeks or month or so, we'll be going before the DRB, the updated master plan for the entire facility, what projects we see coming down. So that will be issued pretty soon. Things we know that are developing, and for example, Project Next, the SRE building, and other things that are going on, the bank center.
Yeah.
So that's happening too. It'll be available soon.
You might think about providing that information to the council.
Yeah.
I mean,
Most of the-
most of them are new.
Yeah.
Right, that's
So they have some of the baggage, but I think that's good for the community to understand the growth here and even think about, you know, its impact on businesses and stuff like that. I mean,
Chocolate, it's single.
Yeah, that's fine. Alright, commissioners, any other items? Alright, we will move on to item 11, which is follow-up items. Commissioners or staff, was there anything that we heard today that we want to make a note of for next month? To make sure we put on the agenda, how we to.
Well, just, I think we can discuss whether it's rises to the, you know, the need to have it as an item for the commission, or just some feedback. There's people were kind of complaining about or wanted to know why there were so many small planes buzzing around South Burlington. And they were concerned the some seemed to be low. And in that they were maybe using unleaded gasoline. Or leaded gasoline, and they, you know, there were some communities, I think, or airports or municipalities who have required that you can no longer use the leaded fuel.
So there are, however, the FAA has stopped all grant funding to those communities because that's not allowed. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean, and I can answer some of the questions, like, can we just not have these small planes? Don't think so.
yeah, I think.
But those are just information that, you know, was, well, maybe the public needs to hear.
Yeah, I like that. We did a presentation, what, maybe 9-10 months ago about cans and cans of airports, but incorporating more of the individual questions into that presentation.
And I'm sure Beta and the school have added to that, so just people's knowledge about that.
Absolutely. And why there's
Oh, yeah.
low leaded fuel, things like that.
Sure.
That's great. It's good to have.
Okay, we will add that as a follow-up item for next meeting. Alright, Commissioners, anything else to this agenda? Alright, so we do have a proposed executive session on the agenda, so I have two motions which will be separate. So the first motion that I'd be willing to entertain is a motion that the commission find that premature general public knowledge of information concerning contract negotiations regarding the BTV hotel would clearly place the city at a substantial disadvantage with such negotiations. Is there a motion?
What's that?
That is moved by Helen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Robin. Any discussion, comments?
Just a quick one, that the airport team will be running the executive session as well as her consultant Jack Glassberg.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so now we have a second motion. That we're going to entertain, that based upon that finding, we would move that the commission go into executive session to receive confidential updates on contract negotiations regarding the BTV Hotel LLC, and that we would adjourn this regular session as no motion is anticipated to be forthcoming after the conclusion of the executive session. That's moved by Helen. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
All right, so we have adjourned the regular session